Well, greetings. I'd like to talk to you today about the vaccine passport, this so-called vaccine passport. And there's a debate going on and the government want it and so on and so forth. And as a lot of you, I suspect, are saying to yourselves, well, why not? I've had the jab. No reason not to have it. I can then show I can have it. It's a passport that I can use. I can go into pubs, clubs, the theatre. I can travel. I can get on aeroplanes. I can do whatever I like once I've got it. I don't understand what the fuss is about. Perfectly straightforward, surely, isn't it? Well, it isn't really as simple as that, is it? Because what it actually is a medical passport. By any other name, it's a medical passport. And once the principle of a medical passport is given, the principle is going to be there forever because, as we know, governments never take anything back. They never change their mind. Once they've taken a piece of power from the people, they never give it back. And if they do give it back, it's under some kind of license. Now, what we have here is a problem that the government said that they would never coerce anybody or force anybody to have the jab. But of course, it's not quite as simple as that, especially if you're young and you want to travel, you want to go on holiday, you want to go to the pub, you want to go theatres, you want to go to concerts, so on and so forth. And it looks like you're not going to be able to do that unless you have this piece of paper. So just let's have a little bit of look at what the situation is. Now, I have constantly not said you should or should not have the jab. It's nothing to do with me. What I do say, though, is please do your homework. Make sure you know what the jab is, what it's all about, and then make an informed decision. And I have gone to a lot of trouble on my website. There's now over 500,000 words of independent medical scientific advice on these matters. A lot of it you won't find on mainstream media because there is no challenge allowed on mainstream media to whether this jab is good or bad for you. And I make no observation on that. You must make your own decision. So that's where the problem really lies. People are being, if you will, railroaded into having this vaccine, this jab, which is experimental. Let me just cover this point. I've covered it again in other videos. It's experimental. The jab is not claimed by those who manufacture it, whether it's Pfizer or AstraZeneca. They've been perfectly straightforward and perfectly honest. They've said, look, this jab won't stop you getting COVID. It won't stop you suffering from COVID. It probably might stop you getting a very bad dose of COVID. It doesn't stop the transmission of COVID. And more importantly, they say we don't actually know, because it's an experimental jab, what situation might be further down the road. We know that you might get a sore arm or bumpy arm, or you might get a rash, or you might feel pretty ghastly for a few days post-jab. All of these things have been part of vaccination jabs since they were invented. And that's not the point that I'm making. But the point is, this isn't a vaccine as we understand it. This is not a traditional vaccine. This is experimental. And as I say, Big Pharma have been quite upfront about the fact that it is experimental. And what they've said is we don't quite know what's going to happen down the track in 2 or 3 years' time, which is why it is impossible for us to legally indemnify you if things go wrong in years to come. And there are virologists and immunologists who are saying it isn't now that is the problem. It is years to come when you have interfered with your own immune system and your DNA. Now, I'm not going down that route. My website says it all. There's all sorts of opinions from all over the world, from medical experts, and you can make your own decision. Make your own decision by all means. But bear in mind, therefore, this so-called vaccine passport, which is going to get you onto an aeroplane perhaps today, or into the pub, or into a concert, and all the wonderful things that they say that a vaccine passport can possibly do, it could be that if your immune system is degraded in a few years' time, the fact that you have had this jab may be a complete reversal. It may be then that you can't fly, you can't go into concerts, you can't go into the pub because it's gone full circle, and now what was maybe good for you today is not good for you then. Also, once you have conceded, and there are those of you and my subscribers I know who concede that it's okay for foreign travel, well, it's not okay for foreign travel. Once you've conceded the fact that a medical passport is legitimate for travel outside the country, it's only a very small step for government to make it legitimate for it to be inside. They've only got to tweak the existing legislation. It's terribly easy. And if again you're saying, I've had my jab and it doesn't matter and I don't see why you can't have your jab and it's going to protect us all, just bear in mind that's not what the big pharma are saying. That's not what they're saying. And if it's a medical passport, which it is, what might the government want next year on it? At the moment it's COVID, but maybe it's HIV. So if you are HIV positive, it can only be a matter of time before that comes onto your medical documentation, and it will all be electronic. And Lord only knows what other things that might be private to your medical situation actually going into the public domain. And if you're with the NHS, bear in mind the NHS is simply these days, another department of government. It's not what it used to be. It isn't confidential. Your treatment room, your consultancy room is not in any way confidential anymore. And if the government decide that they want information, private information about your health situation, the NHS will deliver it up to them without a murmur, believe me. So think about this vaccine policy, because it's not quite as simple as you might think. And for those of you who have been swept along with us, and there are millions of you, stop, pause, take a deep breath and think. What are the implications of government having this kind of information and government enforcing this kind of thing upon you? Think and make your views, when they are known to you, to yourself and to your family, make them known to your MP before he votes your rights away. And he's an ephemeral individual, politicians, they're here today, gone tomorrow. You'll find that you've been lemoned with a piece of legislation which is going to go through the generations. It is actually quite a frightening concept. As most of you know, my work is very heavily independently research-based, and I get my information from all over the world. It would help if you press the subscribe button and the little bell next to it, because the more subscribers I have, the more likely it is that international independent research institutes will share their material with me. It's most helpful, and then of course I automatically share it with you. So surprise, won't cost you anything. Thank you very much.